Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News at noon starts now.
A shooting outside of an apartment complex leaves 3 people dead and another in the hospital. We'll have a live report from Pontiac. And Hurricane Laura makes landfall with winds of up to 150 miles per hour, causing conditions officials are calling unsurvivable. But first, breaking news out of Detroit. Federal prosecutors charge former UAW President Dennis Williams in the ongoing corruption investigation of the union. Williams is charged with conspiracy to embezzle union funds. He is now the second UAW president and 15th person charged in the investigation. We'll have much more on this on clickondetroit.com and on later newscasts. Thank you so much for joining us this noon. I'm Rhonda Walker. Hurricane Laura is now a Category 1 storm. That storm weakening and moving into Arkansas after pounding Louisiana and Texas overnight. Chris Pallone rode out the storm in Lafayette, Louisiana, and joins us now with the very latest.
Laura slammed ashore in the early hours of Thursday, lashing the Louisiana and Texas coast with torrential rain, a storm surge the National Hurricane Center called unsurvivable, and 150-mile-per-hour winds. A powerful Category 4 major hurricane. At least one person now confirmed dead.
The whole Valero gas station roof, you see the top of it ripped off.
The good news is the storm surge appears to have been about half of what was forecasted, which is still very significant.
With daylight, officials are out and getting a true sense of the damage, some afraid of what they might find.
A few houses might make it. Most of them will probably be gone.
But the Texas governor cautiously optimistic.
The reports right now are fairly good because the main thing is we have no reports of loss of life right now.
Early on, it was clear many things wouldn't be the same after Laura as before.
There was an unofficial gust up here in Lake Charles at 137 miles per hour.
More than 500,000 people were under mandatory evacuation orders in Texas and Louisiana. Most paid attention.
We was going to stay, but when they said Category 4, that was it.
But others decided to ride it out.
Why would you stay in harm's way?
This storm is going across the state and it's gone through some of the poorest areas where the houses are not built for this type of high wind.
In Louisiana, the National Guard is out assessing the damage and checking for people who need to be rescued. Chris Pallone, Local 4.
Warren Police Department and Michigan State Police.
With more on Hurricane Laura, we have meteorologist Brandon Rue watching what's now moving in across the country as well as what's happening right here at home.
It's all about the power outages, Rhonda, from state to state as it goes through. The storm moved quick enough to where that storm surge didn't really take hold of the 15, 20-foot storm surge. But here's a replay of the last 12 hours. And right around midnight, right over Lake Charles. And, man, we had 100 to 125-mile-an-hour winds and wind gusts reported down near Lake Charles. The current state of things, you see the heavy rain bands moving into Arkansas and still have some pretty strong winds with this. A Category 1 storm with 75-mile-an-hour winds whipping around. It will eventually later tonight be down to a tropical storm, tropical depression, and then Friday it cruises across the Ohio River and will be close enough to us just to push a little added moisture our way. That's limited contact with that storm, but just a little. Temps are in the middle and upper 80s around here. Man, is it hot out here. Look at the heat index. 94 is what it feels like. This is that dangerous heat flirting with triple digits in Mount Clemens and Monroe. Grosse Ile, 95 degrees. We also have a slight risk for severe weather later today as temps get into those 90s. The warm and muggies meet up with a cold front, so probably by 2, 3 o'clock, Rhonda will be tracking some of those storms trying to fire up, and we'll take a closer look coming up.
All right, sounds good. We'll see you here in a few. Meanwhile, Oakland County Sheriff's deputies are investigating a quadruple shooting that left 3 people dead in Pontiac. It happened on Wednesday night at the Spring Lake Village Apartments in the area of Carriage Circle Drive and Auburn Avenue. Rod Maloney joins us now live in Pontiac. And Rod, I know you spoke to one of the victim's sisters just moments ago.
Right, and it's devastating for her family. Now, if you look behind me here, you can see some balloons, red balloons, and that is the location of the shooting from last night. And the Sheriff's Department tells us that this actually happened as a result of a neighbor dispute. Now, we've got video from last night, and we'll show you what the scene looked like then, but we're told that there were 4 men living in or at an apartment. And apparently it was loud, or at least it had been loud, and there were reports that one of the neighbors objected to the fact that since the people had moved in a few weeks ago, that it had been kind of a non-stop party and been very loud. So the woman in one of the apartments came out and started talking to the men, and apparently the conversation went sideways. She went back and talked to her boyfriend, who the Sheriff's Department is telling us came out guns blazing. Gunfire was heard throughout the complex here, and we ended up with 4 people shot, 2 dead in their 20s. One, 40 years old, he died also at the scene. There was 1 person shot who was in his mid-20s, and he remains in the hospital this noontime. But we spoke to one of the victims, the 40-year-old's sister, and she was genuinely devastated. Her name is Mary Lanehart. Let's hear from her.
He was the friendliest guy you ever want to meet. Everybody loved him. Everybody liked him. Always joking around. Always happy with life. And for this to happen, we just lost my cousin, and he was so devastated behind that. And now for this to happen to him, it's like a bad dream. It's like a bad dream, and it hit close to home. Nobody could have told me in a million years this would have happened to my little brother.
That her brother wasn't even meant to be there, that he happened to drive by on his way to go pick up some food for the family, and ended up talking to these gentlemen on the porch here, and that he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time when the gunfire erupted. Now, the Sheriff's Department is in fact investigating, but they do have 1 person in custody. They say that the person who did the shooting is in custody right now. But we're waiting to hear from them. We hope to have an interview with somebody from the Sheriff's Department coming up this afternoon. So reporting live from Pontiac, Rod Maloney, Local 4.
All right, Pontiac. And all right, Rod, thank you. And certainly your heart goes out to the victims' families. 3 people are now in custody, including a 14-year-old girl, after shots were fired at officers on Detroit's west side. Police are saying that officers were making a traffic stop along Telegraph Road in McNichols around 3:30 this morning when someone driving by started shooting from an SUV. Thankfully, none of the officers were hit. Later in the morning, police tracked down that white SUV that matched the description, and this led to a short chase that ended with that SUV crashing near West Outer Drive. Witnesses told police the suspects were looking for officers to shoot, actually asking people if they saw any officers in the area. Happening now, police are telling us that they are at a Novi home where an armed man has barricaded himself inside. It's happening on Haggerty near 12 Mile. We're told that 1 shot was fired. No one is hurt. We're told that this started around 5 o'clock this morning when the gunman's mother asked for help getting him into rehab. Now to the very latest on the coronavirus here in Michigan. Right now, there is a total of over 99,000 total cases across the state since the pandemic began, with 761 new cases in the past 24 hours. The death toll from the virus currently sits at more than 6,000 people, with 7 additional lives lost in the past day. The weekly jobs report just came out. More than 1 million Americans applied for first-time unemployment benefits last week. And economists say that this is a sign that the coronavirus outbreak continues to threaten jobs, even as the housing market, the auto sales, and other parts of the economy are rebounding. There's only been 1 week with under 1 million claims since the pandemic began taking its toll on America's job market in March. That week was at the beginning of the month. And it is President Trump's big night, accepting the Republican nomination and wrapping the party's convention. It's all happening at the White House, and Tracy Potts joins us now from Washington with that, plus a wrap-up of Wednesday night's speeches.
The White House says the president's speech tonight will be comprehensive and straightforward. The campaign says nothing, including Hurricane Laura making landfall today, will stop that speech from happening. With an elaborate outdoor stage, up to 2,000 guests, and fireworks in the background, President Trump brings politics to the People's House tonight, with familiar faces on the program: personal attorney Rudy Giuliani, Republican leader Mitch McConnell, and the president's daughter Ivanka.
Ask yourself, has this president kept his promises? You and I know. The answer is yes.
Wednesday speakers painting a picture of a president against racism.
It has no resemblance to President Trump.
Elevating women.
He confides in and consults us, respects our opinions.
Fighting coronavirus.
The president's effort for New York was phenomenal.
Republicans with a very blue message.
President Trump is the law and order president, from our borders to our backyards.
Capped by the vice president in a patriotic setting with this warning.
Joe Biden would double down on the very policies that are leading to violence in America's cities. The hard truth is, you won't be safe in Joe Biden's America.
It's horrible what they saw.
Biden speaking out after talking with the family of Jacob Blake, a black man shot in the back last weekend by police.
What I saw in that video makes me sick. Put yourself in the shoes of every black father and black mother in this country and ask, is this what we want America to be?
A stark contrast for voters as the Republican convention ends tonight. And as you know, Democrats have been counter-programming every night. Tonight, it's Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris in Washington talking about how a Biden administration would deal with coronavirus. Tracy Potts, NBC News, Washington.
Thank you, Tracy. Still to come, protesters take to the streets in Wisconsin for a fourth night in the police shooting of Jacob Blake.